Been a while since I posted a video, and the reason is because I've been writing a new book, which just came out this week, and I want to talk about that in just a moment. But first, I want to provide some context for it, maybe, or an introduction to it. And I want to do so by playing a clip I just saw on Twitter today from Frank Turek. Frank is a very popular Christian apologist, well-known author of the book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. And frankly, I have to be honest, he's somebody that I think consistently exemplifies some of the worst virtues of popular Christian apologetics. Christian apologetics should be, I think, a winsome enterprise in which you seek to win over people from a dissenting perspective to your perspective. Now, the way that you should not go about trying to win over other people from a dissenting perspective to your perspective is by condescending to them, caricaturing or straw manning them, or mocking and thereby misrepresenting their beliefs in a mocking tone. And yet consistently, that's what Frank Turek does. And this tweet that he posted today is sadly a great example of that behavior. So this is the tweet. It says, "Atheist looking for evidence of God." And then it shows a clip from the film Bird Box. If you haven't seen that film, it's a sort of a post-apocalyptic zombie-style film. Came out a few years ago. It stars Sandra Bullock, and the idea is that when this alien species invades Earth, then you have to blindfold yourself because if you see the aliens, it's really bad for you or it kills you or something. I did see the movie when it came out a few years ago. It's quite forgettable, however, so I honestly don't remember all the details of the plot. I do remember that in order to survive, you have to be blindfolded. And so this is a clip from the film where the people have self-imposed blinders on so that they don't see the aliens. But then they take the clip, and Frank Turek says, "This is an atheist looking for evidence of God." And here's the audio that goes with it. So that's it. The depiction there, I think quite clearly, is first of all, you have people who have self-imposed blinders on and who are fools, frankly. I mean, oh no. I mean, obviously the language conveys this idea that these are like clowns who don't want to be confronted with the evidence for God. And that, according to Frank Turek, is how we should think about atheists. That atheists are like fools who are simply have self-imposed blinders on against the evidence for God. I wrote a whole book critiquing that view. It's a view I call the rebellion thesis. It's sadly very popular among Christian apologists and Christian lay people. I wrote this book some years ago, Is the Atheist My Neighbor?, critiquing that view. I think it's a terrible view. But I also want to just say, and this is now going to segue me into my announcement for my new book. I think that it's just a fundamental misunderstanding or misrepresentation of the apologetic style of people like the Apostle Paul. When the Apostle Paul went to Mars Hill, he didn't misrepresent and mock and caricature the views of the people that he wanted to engage with. Rather, he engaged winsomely with them, and he sought to build what I call an agreement apologetic. I think what Turek does is all the time he's doing what I call an agitation apologetic. He's trying to create agitation among those he's supposed to be reaching, which for the most part only is going to alienate them further from him in a psychological process that we call retrenchment and blowback. People, when you try to create agitation with their views, they're often just going to become more hostile toward you. Paul, the Apostle Paul, on the contrary, sought to do an agreement apologetic, to find common ground and to build from the common ground with the audience that he wanted to reach. That's what I sought to do in my new book. Here it is on my phone. I don't have print copies yet. It's just out. It's called The Doubter's Creed: How to Be a Christian When You Don't Believe It's True. And in this book, I want to build a bridge to people who are sympathetic with Christianity. I call them sympathetic disbelievers and Christian doubters, two different groups that have an overlapping skepticism about key Christian doctrines, maybe a few, maybe multiple Christian doctrines. And that creates a stumbling block for them in identifying as a Christian and coming to participate in the life of Christianity, because Christianity is historically dominated and defined by creeds, by the confession of sometimes long, detailed lists of doctrinal statements. And the sense is that if you cannot identify with those doctrinal statements, well, then you're kept on the outside looking in. You can't be a part of this Christian community. I wrote the Doubter's Creed to say, you know what? Actually, there are multiple places that you now, even in your doubts and disbeliefs, that you can begin to identify with and participate in the Christian community. And I begin to articulate creeds and creedal frameworks of thinking about how you could identify with Christianity, even when, in some sense, you don't believe it's true. Now, this might sound paradoxical to you. Simply invite you to take a look at the book and how I reason my case. The point I simply want to emphasize here is how counterproductive I think that the agitation apologetic approach of people like Frank Turek is, where again, you mock and you caricature and you misrepresent the views of other people, where you falsely claim a psychological rebellion thesis that they are actively blinding themselves to the evidence for theism or Christianity, when in fact, for the most part, that's just not the case. People have legitimate, well thought out and reasoned arguments and grounds of objection to Christianity. And more importantly, perhaps even than that, is it's simply not a matter of the will. It's not that people are willing to disbelieve. It's that people find themselves in unbelief. And the challenge of us, if we are to be serious Christian apologists, is like the Apostle Paul in Mars Hill, where he reaches out to the Stoics and the Epicureans. He says, you built an altar to an unknown God. Let me tell you about that God. And then he quotes Stoic philosophers. Your own philosophers have said, in him we live and move and have our being. We are his offspring. I want to affirm that, Paul says. So Paul's all about finding points of contact, building from common ground and shared belief, and then moving further into an understanding of the Christian gospel. That's what I think Christian apologetics should be about. And that is what the Doubter's Creed should be about. So I put a link down below, and you can pick up your own copy if you're interested at Amazon.com. Support the author. Find out what it means to confess the Doubter's Creed.